Daniel Hayes was 30 seconds from losing everything. His daughter's eviction notice sat in his pocket, his last $5 clutched in his fist, and the interview that could save them both was happening right now 3 blocks away. But when he saw that woman frozen in the intersection, the truck bearing down on her like death itself, he didn't think about the job or the bills or his daughter's tears. He just ran. What he didn't know was that saving her life would change his forever. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Daniel Hayes heard those words in his sleep. They echoed through every dream, every nightmare, every moment his eyes snapped open at 3 in the morning with his heart hammering against his ribs. His daughter Lily had asked him that question exactly 47 times in the past 3 months. Each time he'd smiled and said yes. Each time he'd been lying. The eviction notice on their apartment door gave them 14 days. The balance in his checking account was $4.63. The interview at Donovan Technologies was scheduled for 9 o'clock on a Friday morning in October, and it was the only thing standing between his little girl and a homeless shelter. Daniel's alarm never went off. When his eyes opened, sunlight was already streaming through the cracked window of their studio apartment. Real sunlight. Morning sunlight. The kind that meant he was already late for the most important moment of his entire life. No. He grabbed his phone. 8:42. The interview was in 18 minutes. Donovan Technologies was 40 minutes away by bus. Lily sat up in her small bed across the room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She was 9 years old with her mother's dark hair and Daniel's gray eyes. Those eyes had seen too much sadness for a child. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. I'm running late." He was already pulling on the only dress shirt he owned, the one he'd ironed last night, and hung carefully on the bathroom door. His hands shook so badly he missed 2 buttons. "Is it the job interview?" "Yeah, baby, but I'm going to make it, I promise." Another lie, but what else could he say? That he'd failed her again, that the interview he'd prepared for all week, the job that could pay enough to keep their home and put food on the table, and maybe, just maybe, let her have a normal childhood, was slipping away because he was too exhausted to wake up on time. He grabbed his briefcase, the leather cracked and worn from years of use. Inside was his resume printed on paper he'd bought with quarters from the laundromat, and a folder of references from temp jobs and warehouse gigs that barely kept them alive. "I love you, Lily. Mrs. Chen from downstairs will check on you before school, okay?" "I love you too, Daddy." Her voice was small. "I hope you get the job." "Me too, baby." "Me too." The door closed behind him and Daniel ran. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. He checked his phone as his dress shoes slapped against the pavement. 8:46. If the bus came in the next 2 minutes, if traffic was light, if the universe decided to give him just one break, he might make it by 9:15, 20 minutes late. Maybe they'd still see him, maybe. 8:48, no bus. 8:50, still nothing. 8:53, a woman waiting at the stop shook her head. Friday morning service is terrible. Sometimes it doesn't come for half an hour. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest, not his ribs. Something deeper, the last fragile piece of hope he'd been clutching for months. He looked at the skyline. Donovan Technologies was on the other side of the Chicago River, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that represented everything he wasn't. Success, security, stability. From where he stood, he could see it glittering in the morning sun like a castle in a fairy tale, impossible and perfect and completely out of reach. He started running. His briefcase banged against his leg. His shirt was already soaked with sweat despite the October cold. His lungs burned. He hadn't run like this since high school, back when life was simple, and his biggest worry was passing algebra. Back before Sarah got sick, before the medical bills, before the funeral, before he became a single dad, trying to hold together a life that kept falling apart in his hands. The bridge stretched ahead of him. His phone said 8:58. 2 minutes. He was still 15 blocks away. It was impossible. But he kept running because what else could he do? Quit, go home and tell Lily they'd be sleeping in his car next week. Tell her Daddy couldn't keep his promises. He was halfway across the bridge when he heard the scream. It cut through the morning air like glass breaking. High and sharp and terrified, Daniel's head snapped to the right. The intersection below the bridge was clogged with morning traffic. Cars honked, people shouted, and in the middle of it all, frozen in the crosswalk like a deer in headlights, stood a woman in a gray suit. She wasn't looking at the traffic light, she was looking at her phone. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, and she wasn't moving. The delivery truck came around the corner too fast. Daniel saw it happen in slow motion. The truck's brakes screamed. The driver's face contorted in horror. The woman looked up at the last second, her phone falling from her hands, and Daniel knew with absolute certainty that she was about to die. His briefcase hit the ground. He didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time, and time had just run out. His legs carried him down the bridge stairs, his dress shoes sliding on the concrete, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The truck was 20 feet away. 15, 10. Daniel crashed into her like a linebacker. They hit the pavement hard. His ribs exploded with pain as they rolled across the asphalt away from the truck's path. The vehicle roared past them so close, Daniel felt the wind from it tear at his clothes. Brakes shrieked. Metal crunched. Someone screamed. Then silence. Daniel lay on the cold street, his chest on fire, his hands bleeding from the road rash. Above him, the October sky was impossibly blue. He'd saved her. The woman was alive. He could feel her breathing beneath him, could hear her gasping for air, and his interview was at 9 o'clock. He'd missed it. He'd missed his only chance. He'd lost everything. The woman stirred beneath him. Are you okay? Daniel pushed himself up, wincing as pain lanced through his side. His shirt was torn. His pants were ripped at the knee. Blood dripped from his palms onto the pavement. I'm fine, he said. It came out as a wheeze. Are you hurt? She sat up slowly, her gray suit now smudged with dirt and oil. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a bun that had come half undone. Her eyes were brown and sharp and currently filled with shock. I think I'm okay. You saved my life. Just glad you're all right. Daniel tried to stand and nearly fell. His ribs screamed. Something was definitely broken. I need to go. I had an interview. Wait, don't move. You're hurt. She grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Someone call an ambulance. No. Daniel pulled away, panic rising in his throat. No ambulance. I can't afford it. I'm fine. You're bleeding. Your ribs. I said I'm fine, but he wasn't fine. His hands shook as he looked around for his briefcase. Where was it? Where had he dropped it? The interview was... He checked his phone. 9:04. It was over. Done. He'd sacrificed his daughter's future to save a stranger. Here. Someone handed him his briefcase. The leather was scuffed but intact. Daniel took it with bloody hands and started limping back toward the bridge. Each step sent fire through his side. He needed to get home, needed to figure out what to do next, how to tell Lily they'd lost. Wait, please wait. The woman had stood up. She was following him, her heels clicking on the pavement. Daniel kept walking. He couldn't face her gratitude right now, couldn't handle her thanks when all he felt was the crushing weight of failure. Sir, please, I need to know your name. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. You saved my life, and I missed my interview. The words came out bitter. Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. Do you know what it's like to have one shot, one chance to fix everything that's wrong in your life? I had that shot this morning, 9 o'clock at Donovan Technologies, but I missed it because I stopped to pull you out of traffic. So I'm glad you're alive, I really am, but forgive me if I'm not in the mood to chat. Her face changed. Something shifted in her eyes. Donovan Technologies. Yeah, not that it matters now. What's your name? Daniel Hayes. Look, I really need to... You're Daniel Hayes. Her voice had gone strange, quiet. You had a 9 o'clock interview for the logistics coordinator position. Daniel stared at her. How did she know that? Who are you? The woman straightened her suit jacket. Her hand was shaking slightly as she extended it toward him. Clara Donovan, I'm the CEO of Donovan Technologies. The world tilted. Daniel just looked at her, his blood-stained hand hanging at his side, his mind unable to process what she'd just said. The woman he'd saved. The woman who'd been staring at her phone in the middle of traffic. The woman whose life he'd traded for his future. She was Clara Donovan. I'm the person you were supposed to interview with this morning. Clara's voice was steady now, professional, but her eyes were still wide with shock. And I'm the person you just saved. Mr. Hayes, I think we need to talk. Police sirens wailed in the distance. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Someone was filming with their phone. Daniel felt dizzy. His ribs hurt. His hands were bleeding. And Clara Donovan, the CEO of the company that could save his life, was staring at him like he'd just performed a miracle. I need to sit down, Daniel said. There's a coffee shop around the corner. Can you walk? He nodded. They walked in silence, Clara supporting his elbow when he stumbled. The cafe was small and warm and mostly empty. She guided him to a booth in the back and ordered 2 coffees without asking what he wanted. Daniel sat with his head in his hands, trying to breathe around the pain in his ribs. This couldn't be happening. This was too strange, too convenient, too much like some story people told themselves to believe the world was fair. But the world wasn't fair. The world was cruel and random, and it took away everyone you loved and left you scrambling to survive. Clara returned with the coffee and a first aid kit the barista had given her. She sat across from him and started pulling out bandages. Let me see your hands. I can do it. Mr. Hayes, you just threw yourself in front of a truck to save my life. The least I can do is put band-aids on your hands. Now let me see them. Daniel extended his palms. The road rash was ugly, embedded with bits of gravel and dirt. Clara worked in silence, cleaning the wounds with antiseptic wipes that stung like fire. Her hands were gentle, precise, the hands of someone used to fixing problems. Why were you looking at your phone? Daniel asked quietly. In the middle of an intersection. Clara paused. My daughter texted me. She was upset about something at school. I was trying to respond and I didn't see the light change. Stupid, careless, the kind of mistake that gets people killed. But it didn't, because of you. She finished bandaging his left hand and moved to the right. You didn't hesitate, you just ran. Why? I don't know, instinct, I guess. I saw someone in trouble and I moved. Most people freeze, or they assume someone else will help. You dropped everything and ran toward danger. Clara secured the last bandage and looked up at him. That tells me something about who you are, Mr. Hayes. It tells you I'm bad at self-preservation. It tells me you're the kind of person who does what's right even when it costs you everything. She folded her hands on the table. Tell me about yourself, not the resume version, the real version. Daniel laughed and it hurt his ribs. You want the real version? Okay, I'm 33 years old. I'm a widower. My wife Sarah died 2 years ago from cancer. Medical bills wiped out our savings. I have a 9-year-old daughter named Lily, who's the only good thing in my life. We're being evicted in 2 weeks because I can't make rent working temp jobs and warehouse gigs. That interview this morning was my last shot at a real job that could keep us off the street. But I missed it because I saved your life. So here I am bleeding and broke and watching my daughter's future disappear. That's the real version. The words hung in the air between them. Daniel waited for the pity, the sympathy, the awkward condolences. But Clara just nodded. My husband left when Sophie was 2, she said. Said he didn't sign up to be married to someone who worked 80-hour weeks. So I raised her alone while building a company from the ground up. I know what it's like to choose between your child's needs and your career. I know what it's like to feel like you're failing at both. Daniel looked at her, really looked, and saw something in her eyes he recognized. The exhaustion, the determination, The fierce love for a child that made you do impossible things. How old is Sophie now? He asked. 8. She's smart and stubborn, and she thinks I work too much. Clara smiled, but it was sad. She's right. Lily thinks I don't work enough. She's right too. They sat in silence, two single parents, on opposite ends of the economic spectrum, bound together by bad luck and split-second decisions. Mr. Hayes, Clara said finally, you were supposed to interview with my head of logistics this morning, but I'm going to make you an offer right now. Come to my office, meet with me and my team. Show me what you can do. Daniel shook his head. I appreciate it, really, but I look like I got hit by a truck. I'm bleeding. My shirt is torn. I can barely breathe. This isn't how job interviews work. You're right. This isn't how they usually work. But you ran across a bridge and threw yourself in front of a truck to save someone you'd never met. You sacrificed your one chance at stability for a stranger. That tells me more than any resume ever could. Clara stood up. My car is outside. Come with me. Mrs. Donovan, Clara, and I'm not asking as a favor. I'm asking because I need people like you in my company, people who don't freeze when things go wrong, people who move toward problems instead of away from them. She held out her hand. Come on, Daniel. Let's go see what you're really made of. Daniel looked at her hand. This was insane. He was injured, disheveled, completely unprepared. Every logical part of his brain said to go home, to regroup, to try again another day. But logic hadn't kept him and Lily alive this long. Desperate courage had. He took her hand and stood up. The ride to Donovan Technologies took 15 minutes. Clara drove a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Daniel had earned in the past 5 years. He sat in the passenger seat, trying not to bleed on the leather, watching the city slide past the window. Tell me about the position, he said. What exactly does a logistics coordinator do? You manage supply chains, track shipments, coordinate with vendors, make sure products get from point A to point B on time and under budget. It's detail-oriented work, high pressure, lots of problem solving. Clara glanced at him. Think you can handle it? I've been coordinating the logistics of single parenthood for 2 years, getting a first grader to school on time while working 3 jobs and managing medical bill payment plans taught me more about organization than any college course ever could. You didn't go to college, couldn't afford it, went straight to work after high school, bounced around different jobs, was finally getting stable when Sarah got sick. Daniel looked out the window. After she died, I couldn't hold down regular employment. Grief makes you unreliable, turns out. Bosses don't like it when you break down crying in the break room. How are you now with the grief? Some days are better than others, but Lily needs me functional, so I'm functional. You do what you have to do. Clara nodded. Yes, you do. The Donovan Technologies building loomed ahead, all glass and steel and impossible dreams. Clara pulled into a private parking garage and led Daniel through a side entrance that avoided the main lobby. They took an elevator to the 15th floor. Neither of them spoke. The executive offices were pristine, polished wood, modern art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Daniel felt like he'd stepped into a different universe. His torn, bloody clothes stood out like a wound. Clara. A woman in a sharp blazer appeared from a conference room. Oh my God, what happened? Are you all right? I'm fine, Michelle. There was an incident this morning. This is Daniel Hayes. He's here for an interview. Michelle's eyes widened as she took in Daniel's appearance. An interview, Clara. I know what he looks like. Clear the conference room. I want the senior logistics team assembled in 20 minutes. But 20 minutes, Michelle. The woman disappeared. Clara turned to Daniel. Do you need a minute? There's a bathroom down the hall if you want to clean up. Daniel looked down at himself. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. His pants were ripped at both knees. His hands were bandaged but still oozing blood in places. He looked like a disaster. This is a mistake, he said quietly. I can't walk into an interview like this. Your team is going to think you've lost your mind. My team is going to see someone who saved my life this morning and kept standing when most people would have collapsed. They're going to see courage and resilience and grace under pressure." Clara's voice was firm. "But if you want to leave Daniel, I won't stop you. The choice is yours." Daniel thought about Lily, about her small voice asking if they were going to be okay, about the eviction notice and the empty bank account and the crushing weight of failure he'd carried for 2 years. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Clara smiled. It was real this time. "Tell the truth. Show them who you are. Let me worry about the rest." The conference room had 8 people in it. 4 men, 4 women, all dressed in business attire that probably cost more than Daniel's rent. They stared at him as he entered, their expressions ranging from confusion to concern to barely concealed disdain. Clara sat at the head of the table. Daniel sat beside her, acutely aware of how out of place he looked. A middle-aged man with silver hair leaned forward. "Clara, perhaps we should reschedule this interview. Mr. Hayes appears to be injured." "Mr. Hayes saved my life this morning, Gerald. I was nearly hit by a truck and he pulled me out of the way at considerable personal cost. So yes, he's injured. He's also here. Let's proceed." The room fell silent. A younger woman with red hair spoke up. "Mr. Hayes, your resume shows a lot of short-term positions. Can you explain the gaps in employment?" Daniel took a breath. "My wife died 2 years ago. I became a single parent overnight. For a while, I couldn't hold down regular work because I was drowning in grief and trying to keep my daughter alive. I took temp jobs, warehouse shifts, anything that would pay bills without requiring long-term commitment. It's not impressive, but it's honest." The woman made a note. Another man spoke, his tone skeptical. "The logistics coordinator position requires managing multiple vendors and tracking complex supply chains. What experience do you have with that level of coordination?" "I've spent 2 years coordinating childcare school schedules, medical appointments, bill payment plans, food stamps, and temp job shifts while keeping a 9-year-old fed, clothed, and emotionally stable. I've negotiated with landlords, debt collectors, and elementary school administrators. I've learned to solve problems with no budget and no backup plan." Daniel met the man's eyes. "I know that's not traditional experience, but if you're asking whether I can manage multiple moving parts under pressure while keeping everything from falling apart, the answer is yes. I've been doing it every day for 2 years." "That's not the same as managing a corporate supply chain," the man said. "You're right, it's harder, because when I fail at my job, my daughter goes hungry. When your supply chain fails, you lose money. Both matter, but only one keeps me up at night." Clara was watching him with an expression Daniel couldn't read. The red-haired woman asked another question, then another. They grilled him on logistics software he'd never used, industry standards. He'd never heard of processes he couldn't possibly know. Daniel answered what he could. When he didn't know something, he said so. When they pressed him on technical knowledge, he redirected to problem-solving skills. He was honest about his limitations and clear about his strengths. And then Gerald, the silver-haired man, asked the question that made the room go still. "Mr. Hayes, why should we give you this job? You have no college degree, no relevant experience, and no professional references in this industry. What makes you think you belong here?" Daniel looked at Clara. She gave him the smallest nod. "I don't belong here," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't go to the right schools. I don't have the right credentials. I can't network at country clubs or charm clients over expensive dinners. Everything about my background says I shouldn't be sitting in this room." He paused, feeling the weight of every failure, every setback, every door that had closed in his face. "But I'm here anyway. I'm here because I ran across a bridge this morning even though I knew I'd be late. I'm here because I saw someone in danger and I didn't think about the cost. I'm here because when life knocked me down, I got back up. Not because I'm strong or special or gifted, but because I have a daughter who depends on me, and failure isn't an option." Daniel stood up, wincing as his ribs protested. You asked why you should give me this job. Here's why. Because none of you need it like I do, and none of you will work harder once you have it. Because I've learned to do more with less than any of you can imagine. Because I've been to the bottom and I know what it takes to climb back up. You want someone who won't quit when things get hard, someone who'll solve problems with no resources and no excuses, someone who shows up even when they're bleeding. He gestured to his torn clothes, his bandaged hands. You're looking at him. The room was dead silent. Daniel picked up his battered briefcase. Thank you for your time. I'll show myself out. He walked to the door, each step, agony, his pride, the only thing keeping him upright. His hand was on the doorknob when Clara's voice stopped him. Daniel. He turned. She was standing now, her expression unreadable. We'll be in touch. He nodded and left. The elevator ride down felt like falling. Daniel leaned against the wall, exhausted, his ribs screaming, his hands throbbing. He'd given everything he had in that room, laid bare his failures and his desperation and his raw, stubborn refusal to quit, and it probably wasn't enough. It was never enough. He walked out of the building into the October afternoon. The sun was still shining, traffic still moved. The world kept turning like nothing had happened, like his life hadn't just balanced on a knife edge for the second time in one day. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Lily got to school okay. She asked if you got the job. What should I tell her? What should he tell her? The truth, that he'd failed again, that they'd be living in the car soon, that all his promises were just lies wrapped in hope. He typed back, tell her daddy did his best. It was all he had left. Daniel limped to the bus stop and sat down on the bench, his briefcase across his lap, his body broken and his spirit barely holding together. The eviction notice was still in his pocket. The bills were still unpaid. Nothing had changed except now he had fresh wounds to add to all the old ones. But he'd saved a life today. That had to count for something. Even if it cost him everything, at least Clara Donovan was alive. At least someone's daughter still had her mother. The bus came. Daniel climbed on, paid his fare with coins that left him with less than $4 to his name, and rode toward home. Toward Lily. Toward whatever came next. He didn't know that in Clara Donovan's office, 15 floors above the street, a CEO was making a decision that would change everything. He didn't know that his phone would buzz in exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes with an email that would make him cry in the middle of their small apartment while Lily hugged him tight. All he knew, sitting on that bus with his torn clothes and his broken ribs and his bandaged hands, was that he'd done the right thing, twice, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The bus jolted over a pothole and Daniel winced, gripping the seat in front of him. Every breath felt like knives. He needed to get home, take some ibuprofen, and figure out how to explain to Lily that sometimes doing the right thing meant losing everything else. His phone sat silent in his pocket. No calls, no emails, just the weight of another failure pressing down on his chest harder than the broken ribs. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway when he got home, her face creased with worry. She took one look at him and gasped. Daniel, what happened to you? I'm okay, just had a rough morning. You're bleeding, your shirt. I know, I just need to rest. Is Lily still at school? Daniel, you need a doctor. I need a job. The words came out harsher than he intended. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. Thank you for checking on her this morning. The old woman's eyes softened. Did you get it? The job? Daniel shook his head and unlocked his apartment door. Mrs. Chen didn't follow, just watched him with that same pitying expression he'd seen on everyone's faces since Sarah died. He closed the door and leaned against it, finally alone. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Lily's breakfast dishes in the sink, her school books stacked neatly on the table, the eviction notice still taped to the door, its 14-day deadline screaming at him in bold red letters. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed and pulled out his phone. Maybe he could find another warehouse shift. Maybe something would come through on one of the job sites he'd been checking obsessively. Maybe his phone buzzed. Email notification, probably spam or another bill collector. Daniel almost didn't look, but habit made him tap the screen. The sender was Donovan Technologies. His heart stopped. Daniel's hand shook so badly, he almost dropped the phone. He stared at the subject line, employment offer, Daniel Hayes. The words blurred. He blinked hard, trying to focus, trying to breathe through the pain in his ribs and the sudden tight feeling in his throat. He opened the email. Dear Mr. Hayes, on behalf of Donovan Technologies, I am pleased to extend an offer of employment for the position of logistics coordinator. Your start date will be Monday, October 14th. Salary details and benefits package are attached. Welcome to the team. We look forward to working with you. Regards, Clara Donovan, CEO. Daniel read it 3 times, then 4. The words didn't change. They stayed there, real and solid and impossible. He'd gotten the job. He'd walked into that interview bleeding and broken and desperate, and somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten the job. The salary and the attachment made his vision swim. It was more than he'd made in the past year combined. The benefits included health insurance, dental, vision, things he hadn't had since Sarah was alive. Daniel sat on his bed and cried, not the silent tears he'd learned to hide from Lily, but deep shaking sobs that tore through his chest and made his ribs scream. He cried for the fear, for the months of terror, for every night he'd lain awake wondering how to keep his daughter safe. He cried for Sarah, who would never see this moment. And he cried because for the first time in 2 years, he could breathe. When Lily came home from school 3 hours later, she found her father standing in the kitchen making spaghetti. Real spaghetti with meat sauce, not the dollar store pasta with ketchup they'd been eating for weeks. Daddy, what's going on? Daniel turned around. He'd cleaned up, changed clothes, taken enough ibuprofen to dull the pain, but he couldn't hide the smile on his face. Come here, baby. Lily dropped her backpack and ran to him. He picked her up despite his ribs protesting, holding her tight. I got the job, he whispered into her hair. I got the job, Lily. We're going to be okay. She pulled back to look at him, her gray eyes wide. Really, 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 I start Monday. We can stay in our apartment. I can buy you new school clothes. We're going to be okay. Lily threw her arms around his neck and squeezed. I knew you could do it, Daddy. I knew it. Daniel held his daughter and let himself believe it. Just for a moment, he let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years, hope. Monday morning arrived too fast and too slow. Daniel stood outside Donovan Technologies at 8:45, wearing the same dress shirt he'd worn to the interview, now carefully mended and pressed. His ribs were still sore but manageable. His hands had healed enough to remove the bandages. He walked through the lobby like he belonged there, rode the elevator to the 10th floor where the logistics department lived, reported to HR, filled out paperwork, got his employee badge with a photo that made him look shell-shocked. By 9:30, he was sitting in a gray cubicle with a computer, a phone, and a stack of supply chain reports that might as well have been written in Greek. Daniel Hayes. Daniel looked up. A man in his 40s stood at the entrance to his cubicle, arms crossed, expression cold. He was fit and polished with the kind of smooth confidence that came from never having struggled. That's me, Marcus Webb. I'm the director of logistics, your supervisor. Marcus didn't offer his hand. Clara told me she hired you. Interesting choice. I'll do my best to... Let me be clear about something. I don't care who you saved or what dramatic story got you this job. In this department, you prove yourself with results. Understood. Daniel stood up. Marcus was taller, but not by much. Understood. Good. There's a training session in conference room C in 10 minutes. Don't be late. Marcus walked away without another word. A woman in the neighboring cubicle leaned over. She was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a sympathetic smile. Don't take it personally. Marcus is like that with everyone. Good to know. I'm Daniel. Jen. Welcome to logistics hell, she grinned. It's not actually that bad. Marcus is just territorial. He's been angling for a promotion for years, and he sees every new hire as competition. I'm just trying to keep my head down and learn the job. Smart, come on, I'll show you where conference room C is. We can survive training together. The first week was brutal. Daniel absorbed information like a drowning man gasping for air. Supply chain management, vendor relations, shipping protocols, quality control, inventory tracking systems, software he'd never seen, processes he'd never imagined. He stayed late every night learning the systems, memorizing the procedures. Lily did her homework in the break room while he worked, her presence the only thing that kept him grounded. Clara had approved it when Daniel explained he couldn't afford after-school care yet. Your daughter is welcome here, Clara had said. Family first, Daniel, always. By Friday, Daniel's brain felt like it had been through a blender, but he was starting to understand the rhythm of the work. Track the shipments, coordinate with vendors, solve problems before they became disasters. It was chaos, but it was manageable chaos. Marcus called him into his office at 4:30. Hayes, sit. Daniel sat. Marcus's office was pristine, everything arranged with military precision. Certificates lined the walls, degrees from expensive schools, awards for efficiency and performance. You've completed your first week, Marcus said. Time to see if Clara's faith in you was justified. I'm ready to take on more responsibility. Good, because I have a project for you. Marcus slid a thick folder across the desk. This is our Q4 logistics report. Every quarter we compile data on shipments, cost, delays, vendor performance. It's due to the executive team in 2 weeks. Daniel opened the folder. The pages inside were dense with numbers and charts and spreadsheets that went on for pages. 2 weeks, Daniel said. How long does this usually take? My last coordinator spent 3 weeks on it, but you're special, right? You saved the CEO's life. You can handle anything. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Have it on my desk by Wednesday. 4 days, Hayes. Think you can manage? 4 days. For a report that normally took 3 weeks. It was impossible. Marcus knew it was impossible. This was a test designed for failure. Daniel looked at the folder, then at Marcus. He could refuse, explain it couldn't be done. But refusing meant admitting defeat on his first week. It meant proving Marcus right. I'll have it ready, Daniel said. Excellent. I look forward to seeing your work. Marcus turned back to his computer, dismissing him. Daniel took the folder back to his cubicle. Jen glanced over and her face fell. Is that the Q4 report? Yeah. In 4 days, Daniel, that's not fair. That report takes weeks. Then I'd better get started. That night, after Lily fell asleep on the break room couch, Daniel opened his laptop and dove into the data. Thousands of shipments, hundreds of vendors, delivery times, costs, discrepancies, patterns. The numbers swam before his eyes, but he forced himself to focus. He'd survived homelessness and grief and medical bills that would have broken most people. He'd kept a child alive on $5 a day. He'd learned to make miracles out of nothing. This was just another impossible problem, and impossible problems were all he knew how to solve. Daniel worked through the night. When Lily woke up at 6, he was still typing his coffee cold, his eyes burning. Daddy, did you sleep? A little baby, go wash up. We'll grab breakfast before school. You promised you wouldn't work too hard. Daniel saved his document and looked at his daughter. She was worried, her small face tight with the same expression she'd worn when Sarah was sick. I'm okay, Lily. I promise. This is just a big project. Once it's done, things will be easier. You always say that. She was right. He did always say that. But this time he meant it. This time, if he could just survive the next 4 days, if he could just prove himself, maybe things really would get easier. Saturday and Sunday disappeared into spreadsheets and analysis. Daniel took Lily to the park for 2 hours on Sunday afternoon, pushing her on the swings while his mind raced through logistics algorithms and vendor performance metrics. She chattered about school, about her friend Emma, about the book she was reading. Daniel smiled and nodded and tried to be present, but part of him was already back at his computer. Monday night, he found something strange, a pattern in the shipping costs. Certain vendors were charging consistently more than others for the same routes, not by much. 5% here, 8% there, small enough that it might be normal variation, but consistent enough that it set off alarm bells in Daniel's head. He dug deeper, cross-referenced invoices with delivery times, checked vendor contracts against actual charges. The more he looked, the more the pattern emerged. Someone was padding the invoices, thousands of dollars every quarter, tens of thousands over the past year. The overcharges were subtle, spread across multiple vendors disguised as market rate fluctuations, but they were there. Daniel's hands stopped typing. This wasn't just a logistics report anymore. This was fraud. He checked the approval signatures on the inflated invoices. All of them had been reviewed and approved by the same person, Marcus Webb. Tuesday morning, Daniel walked into Marcus's office and placed the completed report on his desk. Marcus looked up surprised. "It's not Wednesday yet." "I finished early. Let me see it." Marcus opened the folder, his eyes scanning the pages. His expression shifted from skepticism to something harder. "This is very thorough. Thank you. Perhaps too thorough." Marcus closed the folder. "You've included some concerning findings." "I included everything I found. The discrepancies in vendor pricing, the pattern of overcharges, the inflated invoices. It's all documented in Section 7. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Hayes, you're new here. You don't understand how vendor relationships work. Sometimes prices fluctuate. It's normal business. Not like this. These overcharges follow a consistent pattern across multiple vendors over 18 months, and they all route through your approval." "Are you accusing me of something?" Daniel met his gaze. "I'm reporting what the data shows. What you do with that information is up to you." Marcus stood up slowly. He was taller than Daniel, broader, and his face had gone cold. "You've made a mistake, Hayes. A serious mistake. I gave you a chance to prove yourself, and instead you come in here making accusations based on data you barely understand." "I understand it fine." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a desperate man with no credentials is trying to make himself look important by manufacturing problems that don't exist." Marcus stepped closer. "Let me explain how this is going to work. You're going to take this report and remove Section 7. You're going to stick to basic metrics and stay out of areas you don't comprehend. And you're going to remember that I'm the one who decides if you stay employed here." Daniel's ribs ached. His head pounded. He'd been awake for 3 days finishing this report, and now Marcus was telling him to bury evidence of fraud because it was inconvenient. "No," Daniel said quietly. "Excuse me. I said no, I won't remove it. If there's a legitimate explanation for these discrepancies, then explain them. But I won't pretend I didn't find them." Marcus's face went red. "You're making a very serious enemy, Hayes. Then I guess we're both making choices we'll have to live with." Daniel turned and walked out. His hands were shaking, his heart hammered. He'd just refused a direct order from his supervisor on his second week. He'd essentially accused the director of logistics of fraud. This could end his career before it started, but he'd looked at Lily this morning before school, at her smile, at the trust in her eyes, and he'd known he couldn't bury this, not even to save his job. Because what kind of man would he be if he sacrificed his integrity? The moment it became inconvenient, Daniel walked back to his cubicle, printed a copy of the full report, and sent an email to Clara Donovan's assistant requesting a meeting. The response came back in 5 minutes. "Ms. Donovan can see you at 2 o'clock. Jen leaned over from her cubicle. "Daniel, what's going on?" Marcus just walked past, looking like he wants to murder someone. "I found something in the Q4 report. Something bad." "How bad?" "Fraud bad." Jen's eyes went wide. "Oh no? Daniel, please tell me you didn't." "I already did. I'm meeting with Clara at 2. Marcus is going to destroy you. Maybe, but at least I'll be able to look my daughter in the eye. At 2 o'clock, Daniel sat in Clara's office while she read through his report. Her expression didn't change, but he saw her fingers tighten on the pages when she reached section 7. "These overcharges," she said finally. "You're certain?" "I've triple-checked the numbers. The pattern is consistent across 15 different vendors over 18 months. Total losses are approximately $200,000. And Marcus approved every single one. "Yes." Clara set down the report and looked at him. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Do you know what you're doing, Daniel, accusing a department director of fraud?" "On your second week, I'm not accusing anyone, I'm presenting data. What it means is up to you." "It means Marcus Webb has been stealing from my company for over a year." Clara's voice was cold. "It means I trusted someone who betrayed that trust for money. I'm sorry." "Don't be. You did the right thing. Again." She stood up and walked to the window looking out over the city. "Marcus has been with this company for 12 years. He has allies on the board, powerful friends. If we move against him without absolute proof, they'll protect him and come after us." "What do you need?" Clara turned back to him. "Everything. Bank records, vendor statements, communication logs. I need evidence that will hold up in court. Can you get it?" "I'll try." "Don't try. Do it. Because if Marcus realizes what we're doing, he'll destroy everything and disappear." Clara walked back to her desk. "And Daniel, from now on you report directly to me. I'm pulling you out of Marcus's chain of command, effective immediately. Won't that tip him off? Let me worry about Marcus. You focus on building the case. I'll have our legal team work with you. Be thorough, be careful. And Daniel," she held his gaze, "thank you. Not everyone would have had the courage to bring this forward." Daniel left her office with a new title, a new supervisor, and a target on his back. Marcus would know by end of day that Daniel had gone over his head. He'd know his fraud had been exposed, and he'd be desperate. Desperate men were dangerous, but Daniel had faced dangerous before. He'd faced cancer and poverty and grief and somehow survived. He'd face this too. He had to, because Lily was counting on him, and this time he wouldn't let her down. The legal team consisted of 2 sharp-eyed attorneys, named Rachel and Tom, who set up in a conference room with boxes of documents and a whiteboard covered in timeline notes. Daniel spent the next 3 days buried in vendor files, bank statements, and email records, while Marcus prowled the 10th floor like a caged animal. "Your new friend isn't happy," Jen whispered on Wednesday morning. "He's been asking everyone where you are." "What did you tell him?" "That you got reassigned. That's all I know." She glanced toward Marcus's office. "Be careful, Daniel. He looks ready to explode." Daniel nodded and headed back to the conference room. Rachel had spread out 18 months of invoices across the table, color-coded by vendor. "Look at this pattern," she said, pointing to a series of highlighted charges. "Every inflated invoice goes through the same 3 vendors, Midwest Freight, Summit Logistics, and Branson Transport. But when I pulled their corporate filings, guess whose name shows up as a silent partner in all 3? Marcus Webb. His nephew, actually, Kyle Webb. 24 years old, no logistics experience, but somehow owns stake in 3 major shipping companies." Rachel tapped her pen against the table. Marcus was approving inflated invoices to companies his nephew owned. The money was cycling back to them. Tom pulled up bank records on his laptop. "We traced the payments. Branson Transport received $200,000 in overcharges, then immediately transferred funds to a shell company in Delaware. That shell company made regular payments to accounts belonging to both Marcus and Kyle Webb." Daniel felt sick. It wasn't just fraud, it was systematic, calculated theft over more than a year. "Is this enough to prosecute?" "More than enough," Rachel said. "But we need to move carefully. Marcus has friends on the board. If he gets wind that we're building a case, he could destroy evidence or disappear." "What do you need from me?" "Keep doing what you're doing. Document everything. And stay away from Marcus. The less he knows about your involvement, the better." But Marcus already knew. That became clear on Thursday afternoon when Daniel returned to his cubicle and found his computer login disabled. System error, the IT message said. Please contact your supervisor. Daniel called IT directly. The technician sounded confused. Your supervisor requested your access be suspended pending a performance review. I'm just following the ticket that came through. My supervisor is Clara Donovan. The ticket says Marcus Webb. Can you restore my access? Not without approval from Mr. Webb. Sorry, man, I'm just following protocol. Daniel hung up and walked straight to Clara's office. Her assistant tried to stop him, but he was already through the door. Daniel, what's wrong? Marcus locked me out of the system. He's claiming it's for a performance review. Clara's expression hardened. She picked up her phone and called IT. This is Clara Donovan. Restore full system access for Daniel Hayes immediately. Yes, I'm aware of the ticket. I'm overriding it. Do it now. She hung up and looked at Daniel. He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push before I push back. He knows we're investigating him. Of course he knows. But knowing and proving are different things. How close are we? Rachel and Tom think we have enough for prosecution. We just need to present it to the board. Not yet. Marcus has allies who'll try to bury this if we don't have an airtight case. I need something undeniable. Something he can't explain away. Clara stood up and walked to her window. There's a major shipment coming in tomorrow. $2 million worth of medical equipment for a hospital contract. It's routing through one of the suspect vendors, Summit Logistics. If Marcus is going to make a move, it'll be now. What kind of move? The kind that makes problems disappear, including evidence. Clara turned back to him. I want you monitoring that shipment personally. Every step, every checkpoint. If anything looks wrong, you call me immediately. Daniel spent Friday tracking the shipment on his computer while Lily did homework in the break room. The truck had left the distribution center at 6 a.m. scheduled to arrive at the warehouse by 2 p.m. Everything looked routine. GPS coordinates updated every 30 minutes showing steady progress along the interstate. Then at 1:15 the GPS signal went dark. Daniel refreshed the tracking page. Nothing. He checked the backup system. Still nothing. The truck had simply vanished somewhere near the Indiana border. He called the driver's cell phone, straight to voicemail. Rachel, the shipment's gone. Rachel looked up from her laptop. What do you mean gone? GPS signal dropped. Driver's not answering. $2 million of medical equipment just disappeared. Call Clara. Now. Clara answered on the first ring. Daniel explained what happened and heard her sharp intake of breath. He's stealing it. Marcus is stealing the entire shipment to cover his tracks. If that equipment disappears, the investigation disappears with it. We lose everything. How do we find it? I don't know. Can you track it? Daniel thought fast. The truck has 2 GPS systems, one through the shipping company, one through our internal tracking. If Marcus disabled the shipping company's GPS, he might not know about our backup system. Can you access it? If I can get into the server directly, I'd need IT access beyond what I have. Go, I'll clear you with IT. Find that truck, Daniel. Daniel ran to the IT department on the 3rd floor. The head technician, a woman named Sarah, looked skeptical when he explained what he needed. Direct server access. That's against protocol. Clara Donovan authorized it. Call her if you don't believe me. Sarah made the call, listened for 30 seconds, and hung up, looking pale. All right, what do you need? Access to the backup GPS logs. Last known coordinates for trailer number 749. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard. Got it. Last ping was at 1:12 p.m. just off Interstate 80 near the Indiana border. Then nothing. Can you show me the route history for the past hour? She pulled up a map with the truck's path traced in blue. Daniel studied it, his mind racing. The truck had been following its normal route, then suddenly deviated onto a side road 15 minutes before the signal died. Can you get me the last coordinates before deviation? Sarah read them off. Daniel plugged them into his phone's map. The location was a rural area outside Gary, Indiana, mostly warehouses and industrial parks. I need security camera footage from our distribution centers, any facility within 50 miles of those coordinates. That's a lot of footage. Then we'd better start looking. They found it 2 hours later, a grainy security camera from a warehouse 30 miles from where the truck disappeared. The footage showed Daniel's missing truck pulling into a loading bay at 3:20 p.m. Two men climbed out of the cab. One was the original driver, the other was younger, wearing a Summit Logistics uniform. "Freeze that frame," Daniel said. "Can you zoom in on the younger guy's face?" Sarah enhanced the image. The man was in his 20s with the same sharp features Daniel had seen in photos of Marcus Webb's nephew. "That's Kyle Webb," Daniel said. "Marcus sent his nephew to hijack the shipment. What do? We go get it back." 20 minutes later, Daniel was in Clara's office with the security footage pulled up on her computer. "That's definitely Kyle," Clara said. "He works for Summit Logistics. Marcus must have called him when he realized we were investigating. The warehouse belongs to a company called Riverside Storage. Looks like it's been abandoned for years." "Not abandoned, hidden." Clara picked up her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait." Daniel stopped her. "If we bring police now, Marcus will claim he knew nothing about it. Kyle takes the fall, Marcus walks away clean." "What are you suggesting?" "We go there, you, me, and security. We catch them with the shipment and get a confession on record. Then we call the police." Clara studied him. "That's dangerous." "So is letting Marcus get away with this." She made 3 calls. First to her head of security, a former Marine named Rodriguez. Second to Rachel and Tom, telling them to prepare legal documentation. Third to the board chairman, informing him that an emergency meeting would be necessary tonight. Then she looked at Daniel. "Let's go." They took Clara's car with Rodriguez following in a security van. The drive to Indiana took 90 minutes. Daniel spent most of it reviewing the security footage and building a timeline of events. The truck had arrived at 3:20. If they were transferring the cargo to another vehicle, they'd need at least 2 hours. That meant they might still be there. The warehouse sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by empty lots and rusted chain-link fence. Clara parked a block away and Rodriguez pulled up beside them. "2 entrances," Rodriguez said, studying the building through binoculars. "Front loading bay and a side door. I see lights inside. Somebody's home." "How do you want to play this?" Clara asked. "Simple. I walk in the front, you and Rodriguez cover the exits. If they run, you stop them. If they stay, we document everything." "Daniel, these people are criminals. They could be armed." "Then I'll be very polite." He climbed out before she could argue. His ribs still ached when he moved too fast, but adrenaline was drowning out the pain. He crossed the gravel lot and tried the loading bay door. Unlocked. It rolled up with a screech of metal that echoed through the empty building. Inside, the warehouse was mostly dark except for work lights illuminating the far corner. Daniel's truck sat in the center, its trailer doors open. 2 men were loading boxes onto pallets. One was the driver from the security footage. The other was Kyle Webb. They both froze when they saw Daniel. "Evening," Daniel said calmly. "I'm looking for a shipment that got lost. $2 million worth of medical equipment. You guys seen it?" Kyle dropped the box he was holding. "Who the hell are you?" "Daniel Hayes. I work for Donovan Technologies, and that's our truck you're stealing." The driver bolted for the side door. Rodriguez appeared in front of him like a wall, arms crossed. "I'd stay put if I were you," Rodriguez said. Kyle's face went white. "This is a mistake. We were just moving the shipment to a secure location." "Secure location." Daniel walked closer, his phone recording everything. "This abandoned warehouse, strange choice. Why didn't you use our actual warehouse?" "Look, man, I can explain. Please do. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you hijacked a company truck, disabled the GPS, and brought it here to steal the cargo. But I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." Kyle glanced at the driver, panic clear in his eyes. "My uncle said there was a problem with the original delivery route. He told me to reroute the shipment." Your uncle Marcus Webb, the director of logistics. Yeah, he said to steal $2 million worth of equipment so he could sell it and cover up 18 months of fraud. Daniel kept recording. Did he tell you about the investigation, about the evidence we found linking him to inflated invoices and kickbacks? Or did he just tell you to grab the truck and not ask questions? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You own part of Summit Logistics. Marcus has been approving fraudulent invoices to your company and splitting the profits. And when he realized, we found out, he panicked and tried to make the evidence disappear, but he's not very good at covering his tracks. Clara appeared in the doorway, her phone in her hand. Kyle Webb. I'm Clara Donovan, CEO of Donovan Technologies. The police are on their way. If you cooperate now and tell us everything your uncle instructed you to do, we might be able to work out a deal. If you protect him, you go down for theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Your choice. Kyle's shoulders sagged. He said it would be easy money. Just approve some invoices, let him handle the rest. I didn't know he was stealing. I swear I didn't know. But you knew you were hijacking this truck. He said the company owed him, that he was just taking what he'd earned. He told me to grab the shipment and bring it here, said he'd arrange a buyer. I needed the money. I have student loans, credit card debt. Everyone needs money, Daniel said quietly. That doesn't make it okay to steal. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Kyle sank onto a pallet, his head in his hands. The driver stood frozen by the door, Rodriguez watching him like a hawk. Clara walked to Daniel. You got the confession. He held up his phone. Every word. Good, because Marcus is going to fight this with everything he has. Let him fight. We have the evidence. We have the truck. We have his nephew on tape admitting Marcus ordered the theft. Daniel looked at the medical equipment stacked in the trailer. This shipment was going to a children's hospital. He was willing to let sick kids go without equipment so he could cover up his fraud. Clara's jaw tightened. He's done. I'll make sure of it. The police arrived and took statements. Kyle and the driver were arrested. Rodriguez arranged for the truck to be driven back to Chicago under security escort. By the time they left the warehouse, it was after 9 p.m. Daniel called Mrs. Chen from the car. I'm so sorry. I got held up at work. Is Lily okay? She's fine, dear. We had dinner together. She's sleeping in my apartment. Take your time. Thank you. I owe you. You owe me nothing. Just come home safe. Clara drove in silence for 20 minutes before speaking. You could have been hurt tonight. Kyle could have had a weapon. His accomplice could have fought back. You walked in there without knowing what you'd find. Someone had to. It didn't have to be you. Yes, it did. Daniel looked at her. If I'd let this go, if I'd buried the report like Marcus wanted, what would that teach my daughter? That you compromise your integrity when it's convenient, that you look the other way when powerful people break the rules. I can't teach her that. Even if it costs you everything, especially then. The right thing doesn't stop being right just because it's hard. Clara was quiet for a moment. You know what Marcus is going to say, that you set him up, that you manufactured evidence because you wanted his job. He'll call you an opportunist who saved my life to manipulate your way into the company. Let him say it. The evidence speaks for itself. The board meets tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Marcus will be there. This is going to get ugly. I've survived ugly before. They reached Chicago at midnight. Clara dropped Daniel at his apartment. He climbed the stairs slowly, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. Mrs. Chen had left Lily on his couch, covered with a blanket, her favorite stuffed bear tucked under her arm. Daniel sat beside her and smoothed her hair back. She stirred. Daddy. Hey, baby, sorry I'm late. Mrs. Chen said you had to work. Did you catch the bad guys? Daniel smiled. Only a 9-year-old would phrase it like that. Yeah, sweetheart, we caught them. Good, I'm proud of you. She yawned and closed her eyes again. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Lily. He carried her to bed and sat in the dark for a long time thinking about tomorrow. about facing Marcus in front of the board, about what would happen if they didn't believe him, but he'd told the truth. He'd done the right thing, and whatever came next, at least, he could look his daughter in the eye. The boardroom was intimidating. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago. 12 board members sat in judgment while Clara stood at the head of the table. Marcus sat on one side with his attorney. Daniel sat on the other with Rachel and Tom. Richard Worthington, the board chairman, called the meeting to order. He was in his 60s with silver hair and cold blue eyes. Ms. Donovan has called this emergency session to address allegations of fraud against Marcus Webb, our director of logistics. We'll hear from both sides and make a determination. Ms. Donovan, you have the floor. Clara presented the evidence methodically. The inflated invoices, the shell companies, the bank transfers, Kyle's confession, the hijacked shipment. By the time she finished, the evidence was overwhelming. Marcus's attorney stood up. My client categorically denies these allegations. The invoices in question were approved based on market rate fluctuations. Any relationship between Mr. Webb and the vendors in question is coincidental. As for the shipment, my client had no knowledge of his nephew's actions. Your client called Kyle Webb 17 times in the 2 days before the truck disappeared, Rachel said, sliding phone records across the table, including 3 calls lasting more than 10 minutes each. Family calls, nothing suspicious about an uncle talking to his nephew, and the $200,000 in payments from the shell company to your client's offshore account. Tom added bank statements to the evidence pile. Also coincidental. Marcus's face had gone red. This is a witch hunt. Ms. Donovan hired an unqualified nobody and gave him access to confidential records. Of course, he found supposed irregularities. He's trying to justify his position by manufacturing a crisis. All eyes turned to Daniel. Worthington leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, you're new to this company. Why should we trust your analysis over a 12-year veteran's reputation? Daniel stood up. His hands were steady. His voice was calm. You shouldn't trust my analysis. You should trust the math. Numbers don't lie. They don't have agendas or loyalties. They just exist. And the numbers show a clear pattern of fraud spanning 18 months. He walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. Look at the vendor charges. Summit Logistics consistently bills 15% higher than market rate for identical routes. Branson Transport bills 12% higher. Midwest Freight bills 10% higher. Those overcharges total $200,000. He drew a flow chart on the board. That money flows from Donovan Technologies to the vendors, then immediately to a Delaware shell company called Heartland Ventures. From there, it splits into payments to 2 personal accounts, one belonging to Marcus Webb, one belonging to Kyle Webb. The timing is precise. Invoice approved, payment sent, transfer made within 48 hours. Every single time. Daniel turned to face the board. Marcus says this is coincidental. Fine. Explain the coincidence. Explain why his nephew owns stake in all 3 overcharging vendors. Explain why he approved every inflated invoice. Explain why he called Kyle 17 times before the shipment disappeared. Explain why Kyle confessed that Marcus ordered him to steal the truck. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. You're taking the word of a desperate ex-con. I'm not an ex-con, Daniel said quietly. I'm a widower who worked 3 jobs to keep his daughter alive. And I found your fraud because I spent 2 years learning to spot when numbers don't add up. When you're living on $5 a day, you notice every discrepancy, every missing penny. You develop an eye for patterns because patterns mean survival. He pointed to the evidence on the table. You got sloppy, Marcus. You thought no one would notice 5% here, 8% there, small enough to hide, big enough to profit. But I noticed because I had to notice. And now everyone in this room can see exactly what you've been doing. The room was silent. Worthington looked at Marcus. Do you have a response to these allegations? Marcus's attorney whispered in his ear. Marcus shook his head and stood up. "You don't understand what it's like," he said, his voice tight. "Working for 12 years, watching people with connections get promoted while I'm stuck managing logistics. Watching the CEO hire some nobody off the street because he played hero. You want to know why I took the money? Because this company owes me. I've given everything to Donovan Technologies and gotten nothing back." "You've been paid a 6-figure salary for 12 years, Clara said coldly. "That's not nothing. It's not what I deserve. I built this department. I made it efficient. And my reward, getting passed over for promotion while you bring in outsiders." Marcus pointed at Daniel. "He's been here 2 weeks, and he's already your golden boy. Tell me that's fair." "Fair!" Daniel's voice cut through the room. "You want to talk about fair? Fair is working 80-hour weeks for minimum wage while your wife dies slowly in a hospital bed. Fair is choosing between groceries and electricity because you can't afford both. Fair is watching your daughter cry herself to sleep because kids at school mock her for being poor. That's fair, Marcus. What you did, stealing from a company that paid you well, that's just greed. You don't know. I know you hijacked a shipment meant for sick children because you were afraid of getting caught. I know you tried to sabotage me because I threatened your scheme. I know you chose money over integrity every single day for 18 months. Daniel's voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. You didn't steal because you were desperate. You stole because you could. And that makes you the worst kind of thief. Worthington cleared his throat. I've heard enough. All in favor of terminating Marcus Webb's employment and pursuing criminal charges, raise your hand. 11 hands went up. Only one abstained, an older man who'd worked with Marcus years ago. The vote is decided. Mr. Webb, you're fired effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Your files and accounts will be frozen pending criminal investigation. Marcus stood there, his face pale, his hands shaking. Security entered the room and led him away. He didn't look at Daniel as he left, didn't look at anyone, just walked out in silence, his career and reputation destroyed. The board members filed out, murmuring among themselves. Worthington approached Daniel. That took courage, Mr. Hayes. Not many people would have pursued this, knowing the personal cost. There's no cost to doing what's right, sir, only benefits. Worthington almost smiled. Well said. When the room cleared, only Clara and Daniel remained. She walked to the window and looked out over the city. Marcus is ruined. He'll face criminal charges, probably jail time. His nephew, too, all because you refused to look the other way. You sound like you think I made a mistake. No, I think you saved this company. She turned to face him. But you also made enemies. Some of the board members think you moved too fast, stirred up too much trouble. Worthington defended you today, but others are wary of the new guy who took down a veteran director. I didn't take him down. He took himself down the moment he decided to steal. I know that, and in time they'll know it too. Clara walked to the table and picked up a folder. The position of Assistant Director of Logistics just opened up. It reports directly to me. Salary increase, full benefits, your own office. The job's yours if you want it. Daniel stared at her. You're offering me Marcus's job? No, I'm offering you a job you earned by being better than Marcus ever was. You exposed fraud that could have bankrupted us. You recovered a stolen shipment worth millions, and you did it all in your second week while protecting the integrity this company should stand for. Clara held out the folder. Take it, you've more than earned it. Daniel took the folder. Inside was a contract terms and salary that would change everything for him and Lily. He could pay off their debts, move to a better apartment, give his daughter the childhood she deserved. Thank you, he said quietly. I won't let you down. You already haven't. Clara smiled. Welcome to leadership, Daniel. Now the real work begins. Daniel's new office was on the 14th floor with a view of the river and furniture that didn't wobble. He stood in the doorway holding a box of his meager belongings and felt like an imposter. 2 weeks ago, he'd been running across a bridge hoping for a chance. Now he had an office with his name on the door. "You going to stand there all day or actually move in?" Jen appeared beside him carrying a coffee and a smile. "Congratulations, boss man. Well deserved." "I'm not your boss. We're colleagues. You're assistant director now. That makes you my boss." She handed him the coffee. "Don't worry, I won't call you sir or anything weird, but the logistics team is having lunch at noon to welcome you officially. Try to act surprised." "Jen, I don't need—" "You do need it. Half the team is thrilled Marcus is gone. The other half is nervous about working for someone so new. Show them you're human and they'll follow you anywhere." She left before he could argue. Daniel set down his box and looked around the office. There was a photo frame on the desk, empty and waiting. He pulled out his phone and found a picture of Lily from last month, her smile bright and real. He'd get it printed and framed, a reminder of why he was here. His desk phone rang. Clara's assistant, Daniel Ms. "Donovan would like to see you in her office when you have a moment." "I'll be right there." Clara was reviewing contracts when he entered. She gestured to a chair without looking up. "How does the new office feel? Surreal." "You'll get used to it." She set down her pen and looked at him. "I need to prepare you for something. The board approved your promotion, but not everyone is happy about it. Some members think I'm showing favoritism. Others think you move too fast, that you're unqualified, despite everything you've done." I knew there'd be resistance. Richard Worthington is leading the opposition. He's concerned about optics. A single father with no degree promoted to senior leadership after 2 weeks. He thinks it sets a bad precedent. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Does he want me gone?" "He wants you to fail so he can prove me wrong for hiring you, which means you can't give him ammunition. No mistakes, Daniel. No slip-ups. Everything you do will be scrutinized twice as hard as anyone else." "I can handle scrutiny." "I know you can, but there's something else." Clara's expression shifted uncomfortable. "Worthington's son goes to the same school as Lily, Preston Academy. How do you know what school Lily goes to?" "I looked at your enrollment paperwork. Preston is a good public school, but it's in a wealthy district. The demographics are mostly upper middle class." Daniel understood where this was going. "You think Worthington's son knows Lily. I think you should be aware that workplace politics sometimes bleed into personal lives, especially when children are involved." Clara stood and walked to her window. "I'm not saying anything will happen. I'm just saying be prepared." Daniel left her office with a knot of anxiety in his chest. Lily had been so happy lately. She'd made a friend at school, a girl named Emma. She'd stopped asking if they were going to be okay. For the first time since Sarah died, his daughter was acting like a normal 9-year-old kid. He couldn't let Worthington or anyone else take that away from her. The logistics team lunch was awkward at first. 12 people crammed into a conference room with sandwiches and an air of forced celebration. Daniel could feel them watching him, measuring him, wondering if he deserved to be there. "I know this is weird," he said finally. 3 weeks ago I was unemployed. Now I'm your director. I didn't plan this. I didn't manipulate my way here. I just did my job and tried to do the right thing. That's all I'm going to keep doing." A woman named Patricia, one of the senior coordinators, spoke up. "Marcus said you were after his position from day one, that you fabricated evidence to get him fired." "Marcus lied. The evidence was real. His fraud was real. His nephew confessed to stealing a $2 million shipment on Marcus's orders. None of that was fabricated." Daniel met her eyes. "If you don't trust me, that's fair. I haven't earned your trust yet, but I will. Give me time to prove I'm here to work, not to play politics." "What happens to the team now?" a younger man asked. "Are you changing everything Marcus built?" "I'm fixing what was broken and keeping what works. Marcus had some good systems in place. He was also stealing from the company. I'm keeping the good and removing the corruption. That's it." The tension in the room eased slightly. They asked questions about his plans, his priorities, his management style. Daniel answered honestly, acknowledging what he didn't know and promising to learn. By the end of lunch, most of them seemed cautiously optimistic, but Patricia pulled him aside as everyone filed out. Marcus has friends in this company, people who owe him favors or believe his version of events. They're going to come after you. Let them come. I'm serious, Daniel. Watch your back. Success makes you a target, especially when you're an outsider. I've been a target my whole life. I'm still here. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, just don't say I didn't warn you. Daniel spent the afternoon meeting with vendors and reviewing supply chain contracts. The work was intense but manageable. He'd always been good at seeing patterns, at finding inefficiencies and solving problems. The logistics role fit him better than he'd expected. He picked up Lily from school at 3:30. She climbed into the car with her backpack dragging and her face unusually quiet. Hey baby, how was school? Fine, just fine. Emma wasn't there today, and some boys were being mean during lunch. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What boys? What did they say? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Lily was quiet for a long moment. They said my dad only has a job because he kissed up to the lady boss. They said we're still poor and I don't belong at their school. Daniel felt rage flash through him, hot and immediate. Who said that? I don't want to tell you, you'll get mad. I am mad, Lily, but not at you. Who was it? A boy named Connor. His dad is on some board or something. Connor said his dad said you're not qualified and you're going to get fired soon. Lily's voice was small. Is that true, Daddy? Are you going to get fired? Daniel pulled the car over and turned to face his daughter. Listen to me. I am not getting fired. I earned my job by working hard and doing what was right. Some people don't like that because they think jobs should go to people with fancy degrees and connections, but I'm proving them wrong every single day. Connor said you're just lucky, that you don't deserve to work with his dad. Connor's wrong, and so is his father. Daniel took her hand. Baby people are going to say mean things sometimes, especially when they're scared or jealous. But you can't let their words change how you see yourself or how you see me. We've survived worse than gossip, haven't we? Lily nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. I just want them to stop being mean. I know, sweetheart, I know. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel looked up Connor Worthington on the school directory. 9 years old, same grade as Lily. Son of Richard Worthington, board chairman. The kid was repeating his father's prejudices like they were facts. Daniel wanted to call Worthington and tell him to control his son, but Clara's warning echoed in his mind. Everything would be scrutinized. He couldn't appear vindictive or unprofessional. He had to be better than they expected and smarter than they assumed. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the office to find his car keyed. Deep scratches ran along both sides, gouging through the paint to bare metal. Someone had written fraud across the hood. He stood in the parking garage, staring at the damage, feeling old anger rise in his throat. His car was 15 years old, with 200,000 miles, but it was his. He'd paid for it with money he'd scraped together over years, and someone had vandalized it because they didn't think he deserved his success. Jesus, Daniel. Jen had arrived for work and stopped beside him. Who did this? Someone who wants me to quit. Are you going to report it? To who security will file a report and nothing will happen? Whoever did this knows that. Daniel pulled out his phone and took pictures of the damage. But I'm documenting everything, just in case. The whispers started that afternoon. Daniel could feel them following him through the office. People stopped talking when he walked past. Eyes followed him in meetings. Someone had spread rumors that he'd threatened Marcus, that he'd blackmailed his way into the promotion, that Clara was only protecting him because of the rescue. Patricia cornered him in the break room. It's getting worse. There's a group saying you're the real fraud, that you planted evidence to frame Marcus. Let them say it. The investigation cleared me, the police cleared me, the board cleared me. Public opinion doesn't care about facts. Then I'll change public opinion by doing my job better than anyone expects. But it was exhausting. Every decision questioned, every success diminished, every small mistake amplified. Daniel worked 12-hour days trying to prove himself, while Lily dealt with Connor and his friends at school. 2 weeks later, Clara called an emergency board meeting. Daniel arrived to find Worthington already seated, his expression smug. The other board members looked uncomfortable. "Thank you for coming on short notice," Clara began. "We need to address concerns that have been raised about Daniel Hayes's promotion." Daniel's stomach dropped. Worthington leaned forward. "Several board members have expressed worry about the precedent we're setting. Promoting someone with no credentials or experience to senior leadership sends the wrong message about our hiring standards." "Daniel exposed major fraud and saved us millions," Clara said sharply. "That seems like pretty good credentials. Or lucky timing. We only have his word about how he discovered the fraud. For all we know, he manipulated the data to frame Marcus and make himself look good." Daniel stood up. "I manipulated nothing. The investigation confirmed every finding in my report. Kyle Webb confessed on camera. The bank records prove money was stolen. Unless you're suggesting the police, our legal team, and this board were all fooled by a warehouse worker with a high school diploma. I'm suggesting your rapid rise is suspicious. You save the CEO's life, get hired on the spot, expose fraud 2 weeks later, and get promoted to senior leadership. That's not hard work. That's opportunism." "Opportunism?" Daniel's voice was cold. "I ran across a bridge and threw myself in front of a truck because someone was about to die. I didn't calculate the odds or think about career advancement. I moved on instinct because that's what decent people do. If you think that's opportunism, then maybe you've never done anything decent without calculating the benefit first." The room went silent. Worthington's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "I dare because I've earned it. You sit in this boardroom making decisions about people's lives while your son bullies my daughter at school. You spread rumors about my qualifications while I work 80-hour weeks proving you wrong. You call me unqualified, but I've done more in 3 weeks than most people do in 3 years. Daniel walked to the whiteboard and grabbed a marker. "You want qualifications? Here are mine." He started writing numbers, metrics, improvements he'd implemented. "Since I took over logistics on time, deliveries are up 12%. Vendor costs are down 8%. Customer satisfaction scores increased 15 points. I've renegotiated contracts with 5 major vendors, saving the company $400,000 annually. I've streamlined processes that were inefficient for years. I've identified 3 additional cases of vendor overcharging and recovered $100,000 in fraudulent payments." He turned to face the board. "Those are my qualifications, not a degree from an expensive school, not family connections, not playing golf with the right people. Results. Measurable, documented, undeniable results." "Numbers can be manipulated," Worthington said. "Then audit them. Bring in outside consultants. Review every decision I've made. Interview the team I manage. Check every contract I've negotiated. If you find fraud or incompetence or anything that proves I don't deserve this position, fire me. I'll leave with no argument." Daniel leaned on the table. "But if the audit proves I'm doing exactly what I claim, then maybe you should question why you're so desperate to get rid of someone who's actually good at their job." "This isn't about desperation." "Yes, it is. You're desperate to prove that success requires the right background and the right connections. Because if someone like me can succeed without those things, it means the system you've benefited from your whole life isn't as fair as you pretend it is. It means maybe you're not special, just lucky." The room erupted. Board members argued over each other. Clara called for order. Worthington stood up, his face purple with rage. "You're out of line, Hayes. This board doesn't answer to upstarts who think one good deed entitles them to disrespect their betters." "My betters?" Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're not better than me. You're richer. You had advantages I never had. But better no. Because I've been at the bottom and clawed my way up with nothing but determination and honesty. You've been at the top your whole life, and you're terrified of anyone who might prove they can get there without your advantages. That's enough. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. Both of you sit down. Worthington and Daniel glared at each other across the table. Neither sat. Mr. Worthington, Clara said icily, you've questioned Daniel's qualifications repeatedly. You've spread doubt about his character and accused him of fraud without evidence. Meanwhile, he's delivered results that speak for themselves. So here's what's going to happen. We're bringing in an independent auditor to review every decision Daniel has made since his promotion, every contract, every process change, every metric he's reported. If the audit finds problems, we'll address them. If it finds he's been honest and effective, then this conversation ends. Permanently. Fine, Worthington said. But when the audit proves I'm right, it won't, Daniel said quietly. Because I'm not lying. I never have been. The meeting ended in tense silence. Daniel walked out knowing he'd just made an enemy of the board chairman, but he'd also defended himself instead of cowering. He'd stood up for his daughter and his integrity and his right to be there. That night, Lily came home from school crying. Emma had stopped being her friend. Connor and his group had convinced her that associating with Lily would make her unpopular. Now Lily ate lunch alone while kids whispered and pointed. Daniel held his daughter while she sobbed into his chest, feeling helpless rage burn through him. He'd faced poverty and grief and prejudice. He'd survived all of it, but watching his child suffer because of his success was a new kind of torture. I'm sorry, baby, he whispered. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Daddy, but it hurts. I know it hurts, but you're stronger than they are. We both are. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling strong. It's about keeping going when everything hurts. And you've been doing that your whole life. The audit took 2 weeks. A team of consultants crawled through every file, every contract, every decision Daniel had made. They interviewed his team, his vendors, his colleagues. They reviewed Clara's oversight and the board's approval processes. Daniel continued working through it all, refusing to show fear or uncertainty. He knew his work was clean, knew every decision had been made with the company's best interest in mind. But doubt still crept in during the long nights. What if they found something he'd missed? What if his inexperience had caused problems he didn't see? The audit results were presented at the next board meeting. Daniel sat beside Clara while the lead auditor, a stern woman named Dr. Martinez, delivered her findings. After extensive review, we found no evidence of fraud, manipulation, or misconduct by Mr. Hayes. His reported metrics are accurate. His process improvements are legitimate and effective. His vendor negotiations saved the company significant money. His management style is appreciated by his team. In fact, the logistics department shows measurably higher morale and productivity than under previous leadership. Dr. Martinez looked directly at Worthington. Furthermore, we found that Mr. Hayes has been operating under significantly more scrutiny and with fewer resources than typical for his position level. Despite this, his performance exceeds expectations. Our recommendation is that the board not only retain Mr. Hayes, but consider expanding his responsibilities. The room was silent. Worthington's face had gone pale. Daniel sat perfectly still, barely breathing. Clara spoke first. Thank you, Dr. Martinez. The audit has been thorough and conclusive. I move that we end all questions regarding Mr. Hayes's qualifications and position. Any objections? No one spoke. Even Worthington sat silent, his empire of doubt crumbling around him. Motion passed. This matter is closed. Daniel left the boardroom feeling like he'd just survived a war. His phone buzzed immediately. A text from Lily's school principal requesting a meeting about ongoing social issues. His heart sank. The meeting was scheduled for the next morning. Daniel sat across from Principal Reynolds while she explained that Connor Worthington had been bullying Lily for weeks. Other students had joined in. The situation had escalated. "Why wasn't I informed earlier?" Daniel asked. "We've been monitoring the situation, but it's reached a point where intervention is necessary." "What kind of intervention?" "We'd like to have a mediation session. You, Lily, Mr. Worthington, and Connor, see if we can resolve this." Daniel almost laughed. "You want me to mediate with the man who's been trying to destroy my career while his son torments my daughter?" "Mr. Hayes, I understand the situation is complicated." "Complicated. My daughter cries herself to sleep because kids tell her she doesn't belong, because their parents decided I don't belong. And you want us to sit down and talk it out? What would you prefer?" Daniel took a breath. "I want Connor held accountable. I want the bullying stopped, and I want Lily to feel safe at school. That's not complicated, that's basic." The mediation happened 3 days later. Daniel and Lily sat on one side of a conference table. Worthington and Connor sat on the other. Principal Reynolds mediated. Connor was small for 9 with his father's sharp features and cold eyes. He sat with his arms crossed, looking bored. "Connor," Principal Reynolds began, "we're here because several students have reported that you've been saying unkind things about Lily. Can you tell us why?" Connor shrugged. "I was just telling the truth. My dad said her dad isn't qualified for his job." "Connor," Worthington said sharply, but the damage was done. Daniel leaned forward. "Connor, do you know what I do for work?" The boy looked uncertain. "You work at my dad's company. I manage logistics. That means I make sure products get where they need to go on time. It's important work that helps a lot of people. I'm good at it. Your dad disagrees, but an audit proved I'm doing my job well." "My dad says you only got the job because you saved someone's life. That's part of it. But I also work hard, solve problems, and treat people fairly. Those are the things that keep me employed." Daniel paused. "Your dad is worried I don't have the right education or background, but I've learned that what matters isn't where you start. It's how hard you work and how you treat others. Do you understand?" Connor looked at his father, then back at Daniel. "I guess. Your words hurt my daughter. They made her feel like she doesn't belong. But Lily works hard in school. She's kind to others and she deserves respect, just like everyone else." "Agreed." The boy nodded slowly. "Good, then I expect the bullying to stop, today. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." Worthington had been silent through the exchange. Now he spoke, his voice tight. "Connor will apologize, and it won't happen again." Daniel looked at the man who'd tried to ruin him. "Thank you." They left the school in silence. Lily climbed into the car and looked at her father. "Do you think he meant it?" "The apology. I think he's scared of his father, but yeah, I think he meant it." "Are you still mad at Mr. Worthington?" Daniel thought about that. "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. He let his prejudice blind him to reality, but maybe today taught him something." "What did it teach him?" "That being rich doesn't make you right, and that people like us belong anywhere we're willing to work to be." Lily smiled, small but real. "I like that. Me too, baby. Me too." The next week, things shifted. Connor stopped bullying Lily. Emma started talking to her again. Daniel's car wasn't vandalized again. The whispers at work faded. Slowly, grudgingly, people started accepting that maybe he did belong there. It wasn't perfect. There were still board members who doubted him, still colleagues who resented his rapid rise. But Daniel had proven he could survive their scrutiny. He'd faced their worst and kept standing. And that he was learning was the real test, not whether you got knocked down, but whether you got back up. 3 months after the audit, Daniel walked into his office and found an invitation on his desk. Heavy cardstock with embossed gold lettering. The annual Donovan Technologies Gala black tie required +1 welcome. He stared at it like it might explode. "You're going right." Jen appeared in his doorway holding her own invitation. "Everyone goes. It's the social event of the year. Free food, open bar, fancy people pretending to like each other." "I don't own a tuxedo." "Rent one or buy one. You're assistant director now. You can afford it." Daniel thought about his bank account. For the first time in years, there was money in it. Real money. Enough to rent a tux and not worry about electricity getting shut off. The novelty still hadn't worn off. I don't know if I should go. Galas aren't really my thing. Clara personally approved the guest list. Your name is on it. That means she wants you there. Jen grinned. Besides, you can't hide forever. Eventually you have to accept that you're one of them now. I'm not one of them. I'm just working here. You keep telling yourself that, but Daniel, you belong, whether you believe it or not. She left, and Daniel picked up the invitation again. The gala was in 2 weeks. He could make an excuse, claim he had childcare issues, but Jen was right. Clara wanted him there, and after everything she'd done for him, he owed her at least this. He called Lily's school that afternoon. Hi, this is Daniel Hayes. I need to talk to someone about the father-daughter dance coming up. The secretary connected him to the PTA coordinator, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Patterson. Mr. Hayes, we're so glad Lily's participating this year. She seems much happier lately. She is. Things have gotten better. Daniel paused. I'm calling because I have a work event the same night as the dance. It's important, but if I need to skip it. Oh, don't worry. We have several dads who can't make it. We've arranged for volunteer chaperones. Lily will have a wonderful time. Are you sure I don't want her to feel? Mr. Hayes, Lily already told us she wants you to go to your work event. She said it's important for your job. That little girl is incredibly proud of you. Daniel's throat tightened. Thank you. I appreciate that. That evening he told Lily about the gala. She was doing homework at the kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration the way Sarah's used to. There's a big fancy party for work in 2 weeks. It's the same night as your father-daughter dance. Lily looked up. Are you going to go? Only if you're okay with it. The dance is more important. Daddy, you should go. Mrs. Patterson said there will be chaperones, and Emma's dad can't come either, so we'll hang out together. You sure, baby? I don't want you to think. I think you should go to your party. You work really hard. You deserve to have fun. She smiled. Plus, I want to hear about all the fancy food and the dresses people wear. Daniel hugged her. When did you get so grown up? I've always been grown up. You just didn't notice. The tuxedo rental shop was intimidating. Daniel stood surrounded by mannequins in elegant formal wear while a salesman measured his shoulders and inseam. First time wearing a tux? The man asked. Is it that obvious? Little bit, but don't worry, we'll get you looking sharp. He pulled several options. What's the occasion? Work gala, black tie. Ah, going for the classic look then. The salesman selected a simple black tuxedo with clean lines. Try this. Should fit your build nicely. Daniel changed in the fitting room, fumbling with studs and cufflinks. When he finally got everything on and looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The man staring back looked successful, confident, like he belonged at a gala instead of a warehouse. Perfect fit, the salesman said when Daniel emerged. You wear it well. I feel like I'm playing dress-up. Everyone feels that way at first. But here's a secret. Half the people at that gala feel the same way. They're just better at hiding it. Daniel rented the tux and left with instructions on bow tie tying that he immediately forgot. He'd figure it out. He always did. The night of the gala arrived cold and clear. Daniel dressed carefully, checking his reflection a dozen times. The tuxedo fit perfectly but felt foreign. He kept tugging at the collar. You look handsome, Daddy, Lily said from the bathroom doorway. She was wearing her dress for the father-daughter dance, a blue thing with sparkles that she'd picked out herself. You look beautiful, baby, like a princess. I feel like a princess. She spun her dress, flaring. Mrs. Chen is taking me to school. She said she'll take pictures. Send them to me. I want to see everything. They hugged at the door. Have fun tonight, Daddy. Don't be nervous. How do you know I'm nervous? Because you're doing that thing where you fidget with your cufflinks. You always fidget when you're nervous. Daniel laughed and kissed her forehead. When did you become so observant? I learned from watching you watch me. She grinned and ran to Mrs. Chen's apartment. The gala was held at a downtown hotel Daniel had walked past hundreds of times, but never entered. The lobby dripped with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that reflected the lights. Men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns drifted past like beautiful ghosts. Daniel gave his name at the registration desk and received a name tag that identified him as Assistant Director of Logistics. The title still felt surreal. The ballroom was even more intimidating. Round tables draped in white linens surrounded a dance floor. A jazz band played on stage. Servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that Daniel couldn't pronounce. He found his assigned table and sat down, feeling out of place despite his tuxedo. The other seats filled with people he recognized from the office. Jen arrived in a red dress, looking completely different from her usual business attire. "See, not so bad," she said, sliding into the seat beside him. "Just smile, make small talk, and try one of everything they serve. The shrimp puffs are amazing." "How do you know about the shrimp puffs?" "I've been to 3 of these. You learn what's worth eating." She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server. "To surviving your first gala." "I haven't survived it yet." "You will. Just relax and try to enjoy it." But relaxing was impossible. Daniel watched board members circulate, watched executives network, watched people who'd spent their whole lives at events like this move with easy confidence. Worthington was there with his wife, both of them elegant and cold. He caught Daniel's eye once and gave a curt nod. Progress maybe, or just politeness. Clara arrived fashionably late, wearing a navy gown that somehow made her look powerful and elegant simultaneously. A young girl walked beside her holding her hand. Sophie. She had her mother's dark hair and sharp eyes, but her expression was more open, more curious. Clara spotted Daniel and walked over. "I'm glad you came. Daniel Hayes, this is my daughter Sophie." "Hi, Mr. Hayes." Sophie shook his hand with surprising formality for an 8-year-old. "Mom says you saved her life." "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Sophie said seriously. "Most people would have frozen. Mom says you're brave." "Your mom is being generous." "My mom doesn't say things she doesn't mean." Sophie looked around the ballroom. "Is your daughter here? Mom told me about her." "Lily's at her school dance tonight, but she'd love to meet you sometime." "I'd like that. I don't have many friends whose parents work with my mom. Most kids think it's weird." Daniel glanced at Clara, who gave a small shrug. "Sophie's school has a lot of children whose parents are intimidated by me. It makes playdates complicated." "Lily knows about complicated. I'm sure they'd get along great." Before Sophie could respond, the lights dimmed and the band stopped playing. A spotlight hit the stage where the CFO stood with a microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the annual Donovan Technologies Gala. We're here tonight to celebrate another successful year and to recognize the incredible people who make this company great." The speech droned on about quarterly earnings and market expansion. Daniel's attention drifted until he heard his name. "And finally, I'd like to recognize someone who's only been with us a few months, but has already made an extraordinary impact. Daniel Hayes joined our logistics department after performing an act of remarkable courage. In the short time since he's exposed major fraud, recovered stolen assets, and improved our supply chain efficiency by double-digit percentages. Daniel, would you stand?" Daniel froze. Every eye in the room turned to him. Jen elbowed him, and he stood awkwardly, his face burning. Let's give Daniel a round of applause for showing us that sometimes the best talent comes from unexpected places. The ballroom erupted in applause. Daniel saw Worthington clapping stiffly, saw board members he'd never met smiling and nodding, saw Clara watching him with something that looked like pride. He sat down fast, his heart hammering. Jen was grinning. "Look at you, company hero. I didn't do anything heroic, I just did my job. Tell that to the standing ovation you just got." Dinner was served course after elaborate course. Daniel tried to follow Jen's lead on which fork to use and when. Conversations flowed around him, talk of vacations and golf and investments. He contributed when asked, but mostly listened, absorbing this world he'd been thrust into. After dessert, Clara approached the microphone again. The room quieted. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Before we open the dance floor, I want to say something personal." She paused, and Daniel saw her take a breath. 3 months ago, I made a mistake. I was distracted looking at my phone when I should have been watching where I walked. That mistake almost cost me my life. But a stranger ran across a bridge and threw himself in front of a truck to save me. He didn't know who I was, didn't know what I could do for him. He just saw someone in danger and acted. Clara's eyes found Daniel in the crowd. That stranger was Daniel Hayes. And when I offered him a job interview to thank him, he showed up bleeding and injured but determined. He could have gone home, could have given up, but he stayed and proved that courage isn't just about split-second decisions. It's about showing up when everything hurts and doing your best anyway. She stepped away from the podium and walked toward his table. Daniel stood because he didn't know what else to do. Since joining this company, Daniel has done more than expose fraud or improve metrics. He's reminded all of us what integrity looks like, what it means to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs you something. He's shown us that leadership isn't about credentials or connections, it's about character. Clara extended her hand. "Daniel, thank you for saving my life, for saving this company, for showing Sophie and Lily and every person here that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. Thank you for being exactly who you are." The applause was deafening. Daniel shook Clara's hand, overwhelmed and uncomfortable with the attention. She leaned close. "You've earned this. Accept it." The band started playing and couples drifted to the dance floor. Daniel escaped to the balcony, needing air and space. The Chicago skyline glittered before him, cold and beautiful. He thought about Lily at her dance, hoped she was having fun. Thought about Sarah, wished she could see this moment. Running away from your own celebration, Clara stepped onto the balcony, wrapping her arms against the November chill. "Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you." "You didn't. I just needed a minute. That was intense. You deserve recognition. Everyone in that room knows what you've accomplished. Some of them still think I don't belong. Some of them will always think that. But you're proving them wrong every single day." Clara moved to stand beside him at the railing. "Do you know why I really hired you? It wasn't just because you saved my life." "Why then?" "Because when I looked at you in that coffee shop, bleeding and broken and still trying to do the right thing, I saw something I'd forgotten existed. Genuine courage. Not the corporate kind where you risk money or reputation. Real courage where you risk everything and do it anyway." She looked at him. "I built this company by being smart and strategic and sometimes ruthless. But watching you work, seeing how you lead, it reminded me that there's a better way, that you can be successful without compromising who you are. I'm not special, Clara. I'm just trying to survive." "That's exactly what makes you special. You've been surviving impossible things your whole life, and you're still kind, still honest, still willing to help others even when it costs you." She smiled. "Sophie talks about you constantly. She wants to meet Lily so badly. Says any kid whose dad is brave enough to save someone must be brave too. Lily's braver than I'll ever be. She's survived more loss than most adults. Maybe they can help each other, be friends without all the baggage their parents carry." Daniel thought about that. "I'd like that. Lily needs more friends." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Inside, the party continued without them. Laughter and music drifted through the closed doors. "Thank you," Daniel said, finally, "for taking a chance on me, for defending me when people doubted, for giving me a reason to believe good things can still happen. You gave me something too. You reminded me why I started this company, not just to make money or build something impressive, to create opportunities for people who deserve them, to prove that success doesn't require pedigree or privilege, just hard work and integrity." Clara turned to face him. You've changed this company, Daniel. Not just the logistics department, the whole culture. People see you succeeding and they realize maybe they can too. That's powerful. I hope so, because if one good thing came from all the pain of the past 2 years, I want it to matter, want it to mean something beyond just me and Lily surviving. It does. Trust me. They returned to the ballroom together. The party had loosened up, people dancing and laughing and enjoying themselves. Daniel spotted Sophie and Clara's assistant's daughter playing by the dessert table, giggling over chocolate cake. I should probably get home soon, Daniel said. Check on Lily. Before you go dance with me. Daniel looked at her in surprise. I don't really know how to. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. She took his hand and led him to the dance floor. The band was playing something slow and jazzy. Daniel put one hand on her waist, held her other hand, and tried to remember if he'd ever actually danced before. Sarah and he had slow danced at their wedding, he thought, but that was a lifetime ago. Just move, Clara said quietly. Don't think about it. So he moved, following the music's rhythm, and somehow it worked. They swayed together while the rest of the room faded. Daniel thought about how far he'd come, from running across a bridge in desperation to dancing at a company gala, from broken ribs and empty pockets to a job he loved and a daughter who was thriving. What are you thinking about? Clara asked. How strange life is, how one decision can change everything. Do you regret it, running across that bridge? No, even if you hadn't been the CEO, even if I'd lost the job forever, I wouldn't regret it. Some things matter more than survival. Like what? Like being able to look your daughter in the eye and know you did the right thing, like teaching her through your actions that compassion matters more than convenience. Daniel met Clara's gaze. Sarah used to say the measure of a person isn't what they do when people are watching, it's what they do when no one would ever know. I ran across that bridge because no one was watching, because it was just the right thing to do. And now everyone's watching. Yeah, but I'm still just trying to do the right thing. That part hasn't changed. The song ended and they separated. Clara smiled at him. Go home to your daughter, Daniel. Tell her about the fancy party and the terrible dancing. It wasn't terrible. It was pretty terrible, but it was genuine, like everything else about you. Daniel collected his coat and headed for the exit. On his way out, Worthington stopped him. Hayes, a word. Daniel turned, waiting for criticism or confrontation, but Worthington looked uncomfortable, almost contrite. I owe you an apology. I let my prejudices cloud my judgment. You've proven yourself more than capable, and my son has been doing better since you spoke with him. He's been kinder to the other kids, more thoughtful. Worthington extended his hand. You're a good man and a good father. I was wrong about you. Daniel shook his hand. Thank you. That means a lot. For what it's worth, I've recommended you for the director of logistics position, Marcus's old job. The board will vote next month, but I think you'll have my support. Daniel left the hotel feeling like he was floating. The night air was cold, but he barely felt it. He drove home through empty streets, watching the city transform from downtown glamour to neighborhood familiarity. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway when he arrived. How was the party? Good, strange, good, strange. He smiled. How was Lily's dance? Beautiful. She had such a wonderful time. I took so many pictures. Mrs. Chen handed him her phone. The photos showed Lily laughing with Emma, dancing with a chaperone, eating cake with frosting on her nose. She looked happy, genuinely, completely happy. Thank you for taking her and for all the pictures. She's a special girl, Daniel. You've raised her well. He let himself into the apartment quietly. Lily was asleep on the couch, still in her dance dress, her shoes kicked off beside her. Daniel sat beside her and brushed hair from her face. She stirred. Daddy, you're home. Yeah, baby. How was the dance? So fun. Emma and I danced to every song, and Mr. Patterson taught us how to do the twist. And the cake was chocolate with vanilla frosting, my favorite. She yawned. How was your party? Also fun. Clara made a speech about me, said nice things. because you're nice, Daddy. Everyone knows that." Daniel picked her up carefully, carrying her to her bed. She wrapped her arms around his neck, half asleep. "Daddy, are we going to be okay now, for real this time?" "Yeah, baby, we're going to be okay, for real this time." "Good, because I like it when you're happy. You smile more now." He tucked her in and kissed her forehead. "I love you, Lily. Love you too, the most." Daniel sat in the dark apartment after she fell back asleep. He thought about the bridge, about the split-second decision that had changed everything, about Marcus and Worthington and all the people who'd tried to stop him, about Clara and Sophie and the possibility of building something lasting. He thought about Sarah, hoped she'd be proud of who he was becoming, hoped she'd see that their daughter was safe and happy and growing up strong. The eviction notice was gone now, replaced by a lease in his name for a nicer apartment they'd move into next month. The medical bills were paid, the car was being fixed. The small emergencies that used to feel catastrophic were now just inconveniences. But more than the money, more than the security, Daniel had found something he'd lost when Sarah died. Purpose. The belief that his life mattered beyond just surviving, that he could build something honest and good, that doing the right thing, even when it cost everything, was never a mistake. His phone buzzed, a text from Clara. "Sophie wants to know if Lily can come over for a play date next weekend. Apparently they need to compare notes on their respective dances." Daniel smiled and typed back, "Lily would love that." 3 months ago, he'd been a desperate man running across a bridge with nothing but hope and $5. Tonight, he was assistant director of logistics at a major company, raising a thriving daughter, building friendships with people who believed in him. The difference wasn't luck, it was courage. The courage to run toward danger instead of away from it. The courage to do the right thing when it cost everything. The courage to keep standing when everyone expected him to fall. Sometimes destiny didn't test you to see if you were ready. It tested you to see if you'd still do the right thing when you weren't. And those who did, who chose integrity over convenience, compassion over calculation, changed more than their own lives. They changed the world around them, one honest choice at a time. Daniel Hayes had run across a bridge to save a stranger. In doing so, he'd saved himself. And he'd learned that the measure of a life wasn't what you accumulated or achieved. It was what you did when no one was watching, who you became when it would be easier to be someone else. He'd become someone his daughter could be proud of, someone Sarah would have recognized, someone who proved that where you started didn't determine where you finished, as long as you kept moving forward with integrity and courage and love. And that was enough. That was everything.